Hey, what is up, everyone? It is time for good League of Legends across the whole of the LoL esports ecosystem as the LCK, LPL, LCS, and now LEC also are headed to playoffs. And we are going to cover it all here on Power Spike. It's your boy Dgon here with Monte and Dom. Y'all, it is the time that you've been talking about, Monte. Good League of Legends.
That's right. Well, sort of. I mean, we got some of it in the LCK playoffs.
Sorry, Hala.
I'm
Dom, how you doing, man?
I'm sorry. More sorry about D plus deciding to choke. That's my sad point.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, I'm doing good. I just did 8.5-hour stream. I just watched how many games of League? 5, 6, probably like 11 games of League straight.
The grinder at work here, everyone. Well, let's get to it. Straight to it. One of the series that you just rewatched, if you were watching live, was our certified banger of the week. You could say probably best game in the game 5. You know, people across Twitter was lighting it up. It was the KT versus T1 playoff matchup in their round 2. So it was a best of 5, but it was not an elimination match. The loser was still going down to the loser bracket. And guys, they played their hearts out. That is our certified banger of the week. Let's get to it. All right, 5-game series here, and you know, it looked for the first time that, like all season, that T1 was going to be bested, and the first time in a long time they're going to be bested in
Except for when they actually lost. Yeah.
In a regular season. But that didn't quite happen here, right?
Or when Genji should have beat them, and then just Peanut lost his fucking mind. The brain fell out of the suit, the android suit.
And then the suit ran it down afterwards.
And the suit ran it down because there was no brain. Yeah. Besides, for all the times the T1 looked like they were going to lose and also lost, they looked like they were going to lose. True.
Yeah, that's right. Don't make me wrong here, Dom. I mean, that is exactly what happened. They did not lose yet again. They pull it out here against KT, even in that game 5 where it was just a massive deficit. And one thing that you were attacking on your VOD review was the outward criticism that was coming towards Cuzz. Terrible scoreline if you just look at the scoreline. But do you feel like that was justified there?
I think in the early games he had some pretty bad games. I thought his Wukong game was really bad. Not the one that he won, the one that he lost, where he just got completely shit on by owners Lee Sin, which is a matchup I wouldn't want to play. Like if you're prepping into T1, if you want to draft a ton of lockdown and try to bait the Lee Sin pick, I'm down with that. But playing something that's more of a skill matchup with Wukong and Lee Sin, where you actually lose at points, I think it's normally just a losing proposition. But I thought that his game 5 he didn't deserve all the blame at all. I thought that, you know, he played pretty well outside of a couple team fights at the end of the game. And Zeus had Keen had a massive lead on Zeus throughout the game, and he just wasn't able to convert. I hated the Ghost Blade. I thought the Ghost Blade was complete shit. You're pulling out a 30-minute Ghost Blade for no reason instead of just going Sereldas like everyone else. I'm also a Goredrinker Jace hater, but in this game, I think it was fine for him to go Goredrinker Jace. But in general, I thought that there was way too much criticism on Cuzz playing a champion that's pretty fucking useless in that game later on. Like, you're playing Xin at 50 minutes where you're not getting any farm. Your 3 items. Xin is not even a great pick for the game. It seems like more of a pick where you picked him because you think it's the next strongest jungler, not because it's specifically good. Normally you want to play Xin.
There were like 4 jungle bans, and Wukong was first picked that game, and yeah. I don't know how deep Cuzz's champion pool is. So
yeah, probably not the deepest, which is why they end up going with it. But that being said, there's other picks that would be pretty good in a game like that when there's a lot of melees going around. I feel like other junglers around the world might pick something like Lilia into Wukong, where you have, you know, you're a good AP source. You have a bunch of melees that you can hit. You can go like one of these off like tanky builds, which are pretty strong. So there's definitely options that you have in your champion, or you have as champions. But for me, I thought that the way that he was criticized towards the end, I mean, everyone's telling me that he like had these massive events. He griefed one fight, but when you look through everything that happened, a lot of the things are completely understandable, and sure, you can still classify them as mistakes, but if you think about what was going on, like he got walled off by Atalia, so then he tries to path the other way to get to the fight, where in reality, yes, he should just press S and not move for 7 seconds, or whatever the fuck the Atalia wall lasts. Like, that's that's the best move. But how often are you going to see a player just not move when there's a fight popping off and they're probably screaming, kill this guy, kill this guy, kill this guy, and you don't have perfect information, you don't have vision on where the enemy team is. You think the enemy team might be double TPing, they might be able to try to get there and you know, try to assist owner in the fight. When you see these situations, it's very hard to be like, oh, well, yeah, that was a bad play. You shouldn't have walked into them. But he doesn't know where they are. Like, he doesn't know where the enemy team is in that moment, or at least not with complete information. So he's trying to at least delay the backline so he's useful and he doesn't let his team fight a 5v4.
I think that it was really so there. For me, there was a moment when it was during the final Baron call when we had seen BDD and Keen kind of recall to base to clear out the bot wave and like save the inhibitor and make sure that there wasn't going to be a TP play in, where Cuzz went into the pit to try and desperate steal the Baron. That was a little bit suspect, but honestly, I don't really think that that was the big turning point. I personally don't believe that they should have even sent 2 back to base in the first place. Like, yeah, T1 had the 2 TPs up, but you could also TP back to base if that's going to be a problem for you. The most important thing was that KT lay down some poke around the Baron, because the Baron was extremely important for them to take at that point in time. And it seemed like they overcommitted to a threat on their base that I think was relatively non-existent. I don't really think there was a possibility of a T1 backdoor that couldn't have been responded to by KT. And especially if you're playing the poke composition right, you should be able to answer those kind of TPs, right? So I think my main issue really with that game was that, you know, KT had a fantastic early game. Part of that was Cuzz helping a lot in the early game. And the people that got the leads, most notably Keen, played really quite badly. I mean, Keen was so there's 2 aspects to this. The first aspect is KT doesn't really play poke compositions. That's not been in their nature. And they played out objective control super badly. They got flustered by T1 trying to force the Baron and like all in when they could have just let the Baron go. They had a huge lead, or let them take the Baron, then corralled them with the poke in the pit and eventually just whittled them down, right? They all in. Faker, they said T1 set a trap and Faker got the flank onto Keen. That was T1's plan, is that we want them to freak out, all in this Baron. And if they do, then Faker is going to come over this wall and like blow up Keen. And Keen, this happened several times in team fights where they weren't watching their flanks and Keen was just flanked by Faker, or the Keria gets into the back line using Recon ult. And it's a huge problem. And honestly, for me, it really looked like KT had no way, like they had no idea of how to play a poke composition, how to sit on objectives, how to set up the damage and protect their flanks, which is not surprising because this isn't the style that we've seen from KT this season.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple things. Like, sure, he wasn't like watching his flank, but in the one where he was 5-0, the one where he gives his massive shutdown, where Cuzz is actually playing it properly. I mean, the Baron got down to 4K, Cuzz goes in, stalls them. They saw Faker on the mid wave, so they should have an idea of where he is. They don't have vision over the wall, so they should know that Faker is in that area. And it looked like just no one called it. No one was aware at all of what was happening there.
I think they were so freaked out by this like 21-minute Baron that they were not paying attention.
I mean, they're like 5K gold up. I mean, they're so strong at this point in the game. It's such a free fight.
I know. But they positioned it really badly, man.
Yeah, they positioned it badly, and they also just like, I mean, once they were off the Baron, then like the panic should kind of dissipate. They're off the Baron. We're not going to lose them getting Baron. Now we just have to play the fight, and it felt like they weren't focused on that. Also, in that fight, I don't know if you saw what BDD did, but he just ults into the fucking Baron pit, and instead of hopping off on the other side river with his team so he can like fight, he ults.
He goes into the back of the pit.
He goes to his right, so he goes off the right side of his wall into the Baron pit, and then he just ends up getting solo killed by like Baron just beats his ass down to fucking like 200 HP or something. And he can't fight.
Terrible. Yeah.
So there's a couple things that I want to unpack from what both of you guys said. One, Keen had a great game everywhere except around that topside blue buff area because he died there multiple times. That was where the flank happened. That's where he went.
And also the shopkeeper fucking robbed him.
Yeah, dude, he did really bad there. And the shopkeeper, sure. Those are 2 small areas on the map where he played the terrible game 5. But then also that goes back to the panic that you're talking about, Dom, that feels like a team that was going up against the ghost and the aura of Game 5 T1, who's been so damn unstoppable.
Which is actually where they're probably the weakest in Game 5s. If you just look through like if you get to Game 5 versus T1, that should be a benefit to you, right? Like think about MSI Game 5, World Finals Game 5. Normally you get them into Game 5, you're like, all right, this is pretty good. We didn't get 3-0'd. You should be scared of T1 when they're up 2-0 on you in a series. That's when you should be shitting your pants. You'd be like, oh my God, we might just get ran over 3-0, 20-minute games. We're going to look like fools.
Yeah.
Game 5 T1, not so scary. To me, this game was so incredibly winnable, and like a couple of the decisions that Monte is referring to here, I feel like they just made weird calls. Like they prioritized to kill top inhibitor, where that put them in the situation where they felt like they needed to bring 2 back instead of just clearing out their bot wave. They had Elder, they take mid, they could reset, clear the bot wave, and then go towards Baron and set up. There didn't need to be a situation where they're having to steal Baron, or Cuzz has to try to steal Baron to win the situation. You just don't go for that top inhib. They went for that top inhib as 5, and then because they go to for the top inhib as 5, they have to back out all the way because T1 forced them out. And by the time they're resetting, it's like 8 seconds until Baron. It's just not a good decision. So there was just a few moments where it just felt like they were really lost. Also, I think they could have progressed this game a lot faster. I think they should have taken first Drake at like 6 minutes after they killed Gumayushi bot lane. I feel like they were just over-respecting for most of the game. They were just over-respecting a bunch of situations. Like, they kill Guma, there's Wukong's level 5, there's no ult on Faker mid. Just take the Drake. They're like, oh, we don't have smite, and they have smite. They're over-respecting that. They're over-respecting the backdoor potential. They're over-respecting the Baron force. It felt like if they just kept on playing their game, they just had this game in the bag. They played better, way better in the early game.
They shat themselves on that 21-minute Baron force. Like I didn't understand that engage at all. Like I said, you can give it up and just kill them afterwards. You have the ults, you have the Talia ult to get in there. You can basically just shoot the fish in the barrel of the pit, even if you give them Baron.
Yeah, I mean, or I think Cuzz going in is fine. Like he's literally just frontlining for his team. Like he doesn't take any damage because of his ult. He gives them time to all get there, and then by the time his ult is off, he just has all of his teammates there. It's time to just fucking kill them. Like they are so dead in that situation. There's no way they get to play the game.
Yep.
Yeah. The top push into the back into the inhibitor. That last Baron call that we've talked about a couple times now. That to me is interesting as well because we have. And Dom, you are one of the kings of this. So many examples of highlighting objective for Nexus trades. So many examples of it a lot of time in the LCS. Usually it's like Elder Dragon or something like that. But now we have an example of the opposite of what happens when someone over-indexes on that. Yes, the setup was bad, but then they made it worse by sending 2 back there. It was kind of interesting to hear you break it down that way and see it happen. And now have a very clear example that we can always point back to in a high-stakes situation.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the joke that Thorn made on Twitter, which I think is 100% accurate, is that now you have people in LCS trading an entire series for a minion. So this is like we're not even doing Baron or Elder or any of that stuff, which still makes sense. Like I responded to this, and this is something that I'll stand by. A cannon minion is worth 90 gold at that point in the game. That is still more than the 50 gold Nexus, regardless of what people say.
Right, thank you, Dom. Anyways, this was
this is a high level analysis I'm paid for.
There you go. This is our certified banger of the week. Again, Twitter was ablaze. Watching it, saying, I got to see it live, I think, there at the end. And it was hopefully you go listen to it. By the way, the LCK casters, I think, did a great job of the hype that was around it, the confusion that was around it. I think it was Valdez on the call. I had such a great time watching that one, on top of the fact that then your brain's thinking, well, what's KT is thinking? What's SK? What is T1 thinking? It was a very, very fun back and forth. Go watch it. Go cleanse the palate, and you'll have a lot of fun with that one.
It's also like, I was really obviously disappointed in game number 5 because I think KT could have won it at a million different points. And so I don't think the level of play was super high in that particular game. But I do think that the rest of the series, you got to see a lot of the strengths of both KT and T1 and some pretty clean games by both teams. And you get to see really how there's a lot of different... each team that's left in the playoffs really has their own very distinct style and identity. And you see why BDD's been running the Twisted Fate. He's been the only mid laner in LCK who has played Twisted Fate so far this split, and he's 5-0 on it now. It's been incredibly impactful for him, and this is something that KT switched to after they got bopped by T1 in their last regular season meeting, and they realized, oh shit, we can only play like this one style of team composition. So we're going to switch it up and start playing some pick comps instead. And one thing that KT's been really good at is they select team compositions with a lot of single target CC, and then they just use it to catch somebody out and blow them up. And you got to see what happens. You know, Zayas is trying to play this Gnar, and he gets hit by a gold card in the front line and is just immediately chained into 3 other kinds of CC, and he dies before he can even, you know, transform into Mega Gnar or do anything once he transforms. So KT has been a team that's been very decisive with these pick comps, and you got to see that depth here. You got to see why Keen's Jax is like 9-1 in the LCK. Guy's been an absolute monster on this champion, and finally ended up, being banned out in the last game of the series. But KT is a very dangerous team if you let them on their picks. And they're now at a point, unlike the last time that they faced T1, where they can't really be banned out in the same way. Like T1 really fucked them up by denying them Karma, Sejuani, and Jax the last time they faced. And this time around, they just have too many tools that they can use. And the Twisted Fate has been, and the Jax have been these like kind of pseudo pocket picks for KT that they've prioritized in ways that many other teams in Korea have not. And you get to see why they are so good at executing.
There you have it. Make sure to check it out. Our certified banger of the week, KT versus T1 in round 2 of the LCK Spring 2023 playoffs. All right,
I have
next
a question.
Oh, go ahead.
What is HLE's style? Melee mids and inting Viper, or what?
So their style is griefing Viper, number one. Zeka can sometimes carry a game. Their style is not knowing what Yasuo ult does. It's Kingen can only play well when he's in like elimination situations, and then he gets crazy flanks off, but he's incapable of doing that unless he's on the brink of elimination.
Well,
fair.
They're in elimination.
Now they're on the brink of elimination, so naturally KT will lose to them.
Nope, KT's gonna shit on that team. I think KT will shit on them. Last time they played in regular season, KT should have won 2-0. It was like the biggest throw ever.
Did. Yeah, they griefed their second game for sure.
they were super far ahead. They just lost one fight, and he just one-shot the AD, and then the game was over. But I think KT is way more solid, way more solid than Hanwha.
Yes,
they'll just win.
Yeah, that is what should happen, but you have to prepare yourself for the inevitable roller coaster that is KT.
See, the thing is, I don't actually care about KT, so I'll just say I think they should win. And if they don't win, it's like, damn, they fucking choked. But I don't actually feel bad. Where you're actually a KT fan, so if they choke, it like hurts you emotionally. But for me, I'm just like, yeah, they should fucking absolutely shit down Hanwha Life's throat, like 3-0, 3-1 at max.
Oh, yes.
Like I'm telling you, it should be not close.
Yeah, I mean, KT's quite a good team right now. And I think what's so interesting too, and Wolf brought this up on our show about LCK, is that, you know, KT has been a team that's evolved very quickly when they've lost. I mean, after their loss to T1 the last time, they basically developed this entirely new dimension to their playstyle with the pick compositions. And I feel like I agree with Wolf that there are like really learnable, like teachable moments in this game 5, and I don't think they make these mistakes again. But I also question why they were playing a poke comp in game 5 when that really hasn't been KT's core identity in 2023.
I don't think it really matters. I think that their comp, they don't even really need to poke. They should be able to win from counter engage with the fact that they have Talia in their comp already. So I don't even think that they were like hardcore poke. Like, I think the Varus is just a strong champion and Jace is just a strong champion too. And they played 2 winning lanes on opposite sides of the map. So it's like, that's what the champions end up doing at a point, but they don't need to poke to win the fight. They could just straight up win fights if they just use their abilities properly that are full on engaged. It's not like T1 in those fights needed to be poked down. And that was the deciding factor. For them to lose those fights, you needed bad itemization, not flashing abilities. You needed BDD fucking getting his ass beat by Baron. Like it was not something where I feel like they needed to get a poke advantage. Like the poke is just kind of a bonus on top of what their comp already does.
While we're here, T1 Gen G, thoughts real quick. Monte.
I thought Genji played some pretty clean games outside of the third game of the series where they randomly decided to play Pantheon support and kind of sent it. But that's really common for Korean teams to do when they've been dominating 2 games in a series or up 2-0. They usually try and take some risks or experiment. But I thought the draft that they pulled out was pretty fucking horrible, especially into Blitz. Like trying to play Ashe Pantheon into Blitzcrank is very interesting choice. And they also had like no damage on this composition because they went with the Everfrost Ahri in the mid lane and they had an extremely weak and behind Jace in the top lane. And then they just swapped back to prioritizing the Cassante and getting Chovy back on the LeBlanc, which has been one of his best champions so far this split, and continued the bop. I think 3 of these games were very clean. In terms of Genji style, like Genji is much more of the like 1-3-1 split push team, which is very different than the way that T1 and KT play. So I'm excited to see how T1 does, because if anything, T1 often overplayed their hand, especially in game 5. They were trying to be much too aggressive and couldn't like kind of lose gracefully until they found an opportunity to get themselves back in this game. That said, T1 did set some very nice traps with Faker on the flank, right? They knew what the win condition was, and we can blame KT for walking into those traps or not realizing that they could get flanked in those situations or playing badly. But it was a proactive move by T1 at the end of the day. And like T1's proactivity just continues, and they are good at reading kind of enemy team comp win conditions. So
this is the difference between me and you, Monte. I say that you say that that's proactive move. I say that's a desperate move because of how the game was going.
It was desperate, but they're not just going to sit there and lose. Proactive. They have a plan of like, here's what we're going to do, and we're either going to lose harder or maybe there's a chance we can come back. So I liked the Baron play a lot. I thought some of the other plays that happened before that Baron play I did not like a lot.
Yeah.
But I thought the Baron itself was
in this game. They had to do it. Like, even though it is desperate, they have to be desperate because they get outscaled. So,
Yep. But no, I agree.
This game was like that game was tough to watch. That was a hard watch because I felt like if you just change the nameplates, like if you change the nameplates and then suddenly you just told KT, hey guys, you're not playing against T1. You're playing against FlyQuest and MSI. Like, they win that game 100 times out of 100. They just play the fucking game better. Like, if they see the nameplates and they're like, oh shit, like that's Ayla on support. That's not Carrier, that's Ayla on support. Then they fucking win. You know, like it felt like throughout the series there was a lot of moments where you could feel that they were pressured by who they were playing against. Like, they're very aware of the fact they're playing against T1. And because of that, there was times where like people are on T1 are out of position or they're like just dying and they're afraid to kill them because it's like, it's T1. They have a plan. Like, he wouldn't just be here inting. Like, surely there's something that they know that we don't, you know, like some over respect for sure.
I agree. Yeah. But as for Genji, like, I think it's an interesting matchup because Genji has a huge priority on Zeri, where that's not really been true of T1 at all. And, you know, we've seen Chovy run a bunch of like kind of unique for LCK picks that I'm curious how that interaction with Faker works because Chovy continues to be very lane dominant. He continues to like tweak a lot of his runes depending on the matchup that he's in or his skill orders in kind of weird ways, especially on the LeBlanc. So yeah, I think it should be quite a good matchup like we saw previously. And if Zeus can't get an advantage in top lane and they keep just blind picking him Gnar every single game, that they may not be able to get as big of an edge in the top side. And Pays has been really good, especially for a rookie in some of these series.
Yeah. Get ready for some Zeri, Xayah, Aphelios, and Lucian. I feel like that's the pool that they've been using. And like you said, not an emphasis on Zeri, but Gumayusi can play Zeri, but they've been leaning towards the Xayah.
Well,
way more.
Yeah, Gumayushi is he's the Jackie loves Zeri. He's the guy who's gonna like you need some discipline to play Zeri where you're like, I will not wall ride. Like you have to just say it in your head, I will not wall ride into the whole enemy team. I will not wall ride into the whole enemy team. Even if you see the angle, like because you're gonna have the moment where you're like, but if I do wall ride here and I ulti and I hit a Q, I can just one-shot the ball. Like they will all die to this combo right here. And you have to just be disciplined enough to not take the fucking bait every single time. That's number one. Number two, I think that Genji normally plays pretty well into T1 because I feel like Peanut kind of has Owner's number for some reason. Even though you'd think that Owner would just crap all over Peanut, when I've seen them play against each other, I never feel like Peanut, like either sometimes Peanut just gets completely blasted, but most of the time it feels like Peanut is able to just play his own game, you know, and just the matchup overall, I think the players match up really well when you look at Genji versus T1. Like Chovy is probably the best laner still in the LCK. Mid, I think Faker's a good laner, but I would say out of all the aspects of Faker's gameplay, his laning is probably one of the weakest aspects. And then their bot lane is pretty good 2v2. You know, they've got the Zoomer bot lane that can actually play 2v2 as well. So if you're able to deny a couple of the key picks from T1 and you don't open up angles for like free ranged AD carry picks as support, if you just end up not blind picking an enchanter and you force them onto things like the Rakan for instance that he was forced on in the previous series, that Carry was forced on in the previous series, I feel like T1 becomes a lot weaker like pretty quickly too.
It's also, I think, hard for them to focus on Peanut and ban him out because Peanut he is one of the only junglers that will actually play Maokai, like play the tank Maokai in this meta.
Good again. people are playing Maokai with the Peanut build. This is going to be the Peanut build. The Tarzan Maokai build, that should just be renamed the Peanut build. Moonstone, Redemption, like Guardian. Fuck yeah, that's a Peanut champion right there. That's definitely not an Owner champion. I'll tell you that.
So I mean, we did see Maokai bans in the series they played against Hanwha Life, and Peanut's the only. But like Peanut will be able to play Vi, Wukong, Sejuani, or Maokai. So it's going to be hard to get him off one of those. And I feel like if you are T1 and you're like you want to ban a couple of those, then try and take one away early in the draft, you may just be. Yeah, he's going to play Poppy. That's correct. And like, even if he doesn't, you're going to be suppressing maybe Owner's ability because if you're T1, you realistically want Owner on Lee Sin or Elise, like ideally. And he's not going to be quite as oppressive on some of these other style of champions. So I think the jungle matchup is super interesting in that one because they're very, 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 very different junglers.
Yeah, and I just feel like because they're so different, it gives Peanut almost an advantage that he normally wouldn't have, where like he doesn't want to interact with Owner, and I feel like Owner's the guy that just like wants to fight you, and Peanut just won't give him the fight. You know, like Owner is the guy that wants to just show that he's a fucking better jungler than you. He wants to show up, beat your ass, like chunk you out of the jungle, and then like call Faker, be like, all right, just chunk this guy. It's a free 4-man dive. Like, come here, we're diving bot. You know, like that's like Owner is the Giga Chad jungler. He's the Giga Chad jungler, and Peanut is the ultimate pussy. Peanut is like, I will make plays that are 100% guaranteed when I have resources to make the plays. And look, when you play League of Legends for a long time, every jungler becomes that eventually. Like, that is just how you evolve as a jungler.
When this happens to you, Dom,
you'd rather just beat them with your fucking brain if you got a bigger brain. You don't have to beat them with your cock all the time.
Yeah, like the analogy here in X-Men is Clid is like Wolverine. Like he wants to play super aggressive and get in there. Peanut is Professor X, just in a wheelchair using Cerebro to spy on you from afar.
Wait, what is Owner?
No, that's what I meant. Owner is Wolverine.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Right, yeah.
Do it again. Do it again.
My own joke. Damn it! I fucked up my joke.
Clid is like who is Clid in the X-Men reference?
The Blob.
The Blob. Jesus. Clid got fucked this last series. He was useless. He was just AFK doing nothing while Peanut was running the game. I don't know.
All right.
Upside was an issue.
Hey guys, you know what's cool? Well, Last Free Nation's pretty cool, and Power Spike is definitely cool. But the coolest thing on this show is actually the smoke coming from your freeze pipe. That's right. You pop one of these glycerin chambers into your freezer for up to an hour. Then you go ahead and take a hit, and man, it's going to cool it by over 300 degrees Fahrenheit. This means that you won't be scorching the back of your throat, coughing up a lung, or any unpleasant experience. This glycerin chamber is from the Bong XL, and you can get it right now at www.thefreezepipe.com. And if you go there and use your code LFN, that's LFN for Last Free Nation, you can get 10% off your entire order. Now, it may be a Bong XL. It may be a pipe, it may be a dab rig or a bubbler. These are all the options you have for you, and supporting Freeze Pipe will also support us here at Last Free Nation. So thanks a lot to those of you guys who have currently enjoyed those products. And if you're thinking about an upgrade to your glass before you hit 420, well, now's a great time to do it. Thanks a lot to Freeze Pipe.
Let's close it out here. Again, our certified banger and a little bit of look towards the LCK playoffs. Continuing down our trend of, I guess, spring 2023, the motto, which is they were who they thought they were. They were who we thought they were. It's time for our segment, Tough to Swallow, as Monte has something to say to those that invested to the rocket that tried to go to the moon that did not stop until it stopped.
All right, guys, as you know, at Last Free Nation, we're putting out a bunch of clips from these shows, and some of them get like a lot of action onto TikTok or YouTube Shorts, which of course comes with a bunch of really dumb takes. So after I went in on 100 Thieves' absolutely garbage, stupid play style that they had been rolling with, we had some excellent comments, such as this one from TikTok about when I said this last week. Wow, so good with your knowledge, dickhead, lol. If it's so bad, then why talk about it? Well, how did that age, dickhead? What happened to 100 Thieves? That's right. They got 3-0'd by FlyQuest. They don't understand that people can come on flanks in team fights. And then they lost to Golden Guardians. And you know what, guys? I didn't even watch that series because when I saw that it was 3-2 Golden Guardians over 100 Thieves, I was like, I am so glad to be done with this. I never want to watch this fucking team again. I just watched the end of that game where Doublelift decided to walk up on a cannon minion and get caught and die, and the game ended. Little smile cracked on my face. Don't need to watch 5 games of that absolute nonsense bullshit. Good riddance. We don't have to see that at MSI. How about this comment from YouTube? FlyQuest win a few games in the early week. Monte, this team could literally be top 10 in the world, and 100 Thieves was stupid because Papa Smithy could have given them this. How's that aging, motherfucker? What? Where's Papa Smithy now? Oh, right. Yeah, he advanced to the next stage of the playoffs, and 100 Thieves were the first team eliminated from NA. 100 Thieves win 7 games in a row, make absolutely zero claims that they are amazing or will be an international powerhouse or anything like that. Monte, these guys are frauds, and I want them out of the LCS. Hey, were they fraudulent versus FlyQuest? I couldn't really tell from the absolute shit stomping that FlyQuest gave them whether they were frauds or not. How's that going, you guys? Meanwhile, I never said they were top teams in the world. In fact, I said very specifically that we had to wait until they played more games because it was best of ones. And it was going to take, like, ending the split like 16-2 before we could even have that conversation. So I didn't say that at all. Now, as for Papa Smithy could have given them that, he did. You know what Papa Smithy gave them? He gave them 3 finals in a row and an LCS championship. What do they got now? They've got a fucking energy drink that you can only buy online and a FPS video game that's never going to be fucking released. That's what 100 Thieves have. Stupid ass hoodie org that doesn't care about esports. Why are you even supporting them? They don't give a flying fuck about you as a fan. They literally ditched their team to sell some Doublelift hoodies.
That was a rant.
That was a rant. That was good shit, man. I was ready to jump in to be who was the YouTube commenter? It was Will. I was ready to do my know-it-all voice, but instead you took it, and I was like, all right, Monte's going KO Ken. He's going Super Saiyan. We're
Stupid fucking 100 Thieves fans. They're just Doublelift fans. These guys are washed. Oh yeah. Okay. Just fucking washed. Look how washed they are. Even Bjergsen's fucking Zillion couldn't save them this time. Wish he could just revive his own fucking career. To revive 100 Thieves while they're at it.
I mean, look, all I'm saying is I think Doublelift is great, and he should keep on trying to play and not co-stream. That's what I'll say.
Geez, lot of great points there. That was this week's tough to swallow by the 100 Thieves. Not just fans, but I think fanatics that have thrown knowledge and I guess analysis by the wayside as they sip on the juvie.
Yeah,
Well,
and I told you guys I was going to go Stephen A. Smith when Doublelift.
You did. You actually did.
And I was really going to enjoy it. But yeah, ain't nobody got time for 5 games of Golden Guardians versus 100 Thieves, man. Except for
I
Dom.
had all the time in the world.
How was it, Dom? Tell me how the game. What was your analysis of the games that I didn't watch?
Well, actually, like, to be honest, that series was probably one of the most surprising series that I've seen as like somebody who's watched almost every single game of LCS, where normally, you know, like when Doublelift and Bjergsen start winning like that game 5, like the other team, like who he was just running it down, he's sprinting it. You know, when the game starts like that, normally 100 Thieves, like when you have a Doublelift Bjergsen team, they're going to be able to close out on the team that's choking. But I thought that game was really interesting because even though they're in a big position where they should have just won, Golden Guardians actually kind of did the T1 play where enemy team ganked bot, they expended some resources, and instantly Licorice TP to the Baron, and they just forced a flip Baron, knowing that they're probably going to lose if they don't get this Baron because Soul was coming up and all these other factors. And they did that play, they executed, they won it, and then they like were able to leverage that into like a game-winning fight. Like I was very surprised because I just thought that Golden Guardians was going to roll over and die. So it was just surprising. Like almost always when I'm watching LCS, I'll be like, oh, this game is over. You can just see it in the players that they just don't have like the life in them, or that they're just choking in the big moment. And when you see that in LCS, it's almost always a wrap. But I was very surprised that Golden Guardians was actually able to come back and win, because the early game was like disaster. You know, they're playing against the GOATs of the LCS. The fucking early game is a disaster. Doublelift is getting a kill or getting like free fucking kills. The mid laner is getting killed. Everyone, Bjergsen, Doublelift, they're just super ahead, and the comp is not that easy to play from Golden Guardians. They have to flank, they have to play like Gwen, get angles, and flank into the backline. Somehow they fucking won. So that was pretty interesting. I don't know.
Well, one thing that I think I remember was that although 100 Thieves had a ton of kills, Licorice was just amassing gold. And the whole season, we're like, who cares? But on Gwen, in a Game 5 situation, I think across this series, the Game 4 as well, on Olaf, this was also, I wouldn't say, hey, he's done, he's redeemed, he is the top laner that all the Golden Guardians fans and the staff that believed in him knew he was, but it definitely was probably the biggest standout moment for Licorice since leaving Cloud9. Right?
These were the 3 best games that I've seen him play. The 3 games that he won were the 3 best games that I've seen him play in 3 years.
That's great. I'm happy for him.
Right. We could focus on the other games in the last 3 years, or we could just focus here on these 3 games.
Hey, all that matters is the last game you've played, which is why Doublelift is trash.
Okay.
Continue.
Okay. And that's why he has to keep playing to prove that he's not. See, look, I'm picking up. I got you, Dom. I got you, Dom.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, look, all I'm saying is I remember, I don't know if it was on the show or it was on Face Check. Maybe it was on both, where I said that they should have just, teams when they play against 100 Thieves should ban out Closer and not ban out Doublelift. Look at what everyone did, and look at what happened. I rest my case. That's it.
There you go. There was one more point. Oh, my favorite part was... the other thing is, again, I like to try and call it out when I see it. There was the piece on Stixay after game 1, which was after they lost, but they ran it, and it was him talking about the lows during CLG, and then like kind of being lost. And it was very vulnerable, and I liked the fact that he was able to vocalize what he was feeling. He was like, there were times in the game where I know I should know where a player is, and I was just questioning everything that I was doing. And there's a lot of the time where we say it on shows like this, where a player looks lost. They should know what's happening. But when you have a confidence of crisis, it was a perfect example of what that was. And you can't help, even though, again, a lot of the org stuff and the things that I don't like about the org, these guys and these players, the story of, the last 3 games here for Licorice, and Stixay's revival this year, who he getting booted has to go prove it against 100 Thieves. Like, these are really cool things to see and have happen. So that was a fun little piece here for Golden Guardians, wrapping it all up. Inero getting a playoff series win. Like, all these nice little stories here for Golden Guardians. Find it there. So again, last question here, Monte. Again, this whole tough to swallow segment was about 100 Thieves. What's the fix? Is there a fix for the summer? Is there a fix?
Do they have a time machine so that they can go back to before the economy was in a worse state, where they thought they could develop like a AAA game title, and they thought they could like have a successful energy drink and like be a clothing company at the same time? And then they hired a bunch of people and then fired them, and now that they like don't have money, I guess, to spend on an actual roster, or don't want to spend it on an actual roster, is that an option? There is no fix, is the answer. Like, they're not an esports team. They LARPed as an esports team for a little bit there, but then they went straight back to not being an esports team again.
3 finals. You know, I think that
they did great for a while.
All right.
You know, but I don't see that this is an organization, given that they have spent so much money on non-esports things, and like, you can't take the game out of development. Like, you have to keep making the energy drink. That's where their money's going.
All right. Okay. That's this segment for Tough to Swallow here for 100 Thieves. We'll stay on the North American timeline for our Galaxy Brain Club discussion and move to the larger chat. Who's going to win the LCS playoffs? Let's get into it. All right. So we've got 2 limited teams, 4 left, 3 that will be going to what is a word that we an adjective that we should use to describe Raleigh, North Carolina? The home of Southern Comfort, Raleigh, North Carolina. The
home of Southern Comfort?
Sure.
That's what Dgon declares it. I like Raleigh a lot. The barbecue is fire. The vinegar sauce is my jam.
You're a vinegar sauce guy?
The pork shoulder with the vinegar sauce, I make it myself in my own smoker, and that shit fucking rules. I love North Carolina barbecue.
Yeah, I like it too. I've been to Raleigh only once, but I had a good time there. I thought it was pretty nice. It's just a very relaxing place, and plus I like the like trees and like the forest and shit. Like, it's just nice to like be around that much, nature. Because I lived in LA for years, and LA is just, it's just I don't know, it's just depressing living there.
Can you get me out, Dom?
Yeah, I mean, I could. Look, I've got an extra. You could bring the whole family. Dgon knows. Dgon see the house. We could fit Monte's family.
It's a big out. You just got to deal with all the drugs that are there. The crack house. You got to step over it. All over the place, man.
Yeah, there's a couple like
stained mattresses,
attics, and all that stuff.
Yeah,
it is what it is.
It's a good pillow.
Dom's flop house.
There it is. That I was like, there's a couple schools in North Carolina. Wake Forest, right? That's in Raleigh, North Carolina. NC State, that's also there.
Where's UNC? No, that's somewhere else. UNC is
Duke are in. I guess they're also generally close.
Isn't it from Asheville?
No, there's a
bunch of cities that are close by to Raleigh too.
But anyway, the Tar Heel State. There it is. That's what it is. Raleigh, North Carolina. 4 teams left. God, I segued way too hard there, guys. 4 teams left. Who ends up on top? We have the resurgence of
University of Miami. Oh, never mind. Talking about something else.
Jim Larinaga, George Mason guy. We had the resurgence of EG after putting CLG down in a 3-0 series after CLG looked good against Cloud9. You got yourself Golden Guardians, the good story there with how things have played out in terms of redemption. And then the top 2 teams. Again, this has been the year of they were who we thought they were, except Golden Guardians. That was kind of a surprise. How do you see this one shaking out here, Dom? Let's start at the top, Cloud9 and FlyQuest.
Yeah, I mean, I think Cloud9 is just the best team in LCS right now. Even though they looked bad against CLG, C9 has always struggled against CLG for some reason. It's really weird. Even when they went on their super dominant run where they like 3-0'd summer playoffs. They're absolutely smurfing. They played a very close series into CLG. For some reason, they just don't match up well there. But I just think that they're the most solid team overall. Some of the stuff that they're doing is not great. Their setups were bad, but I just have the confidence that they'll get it together. FlyQuest, obviously, they played well against 100 Thieves, but I don't think that team is as cohesive as Cloud9. And normally, just when you have a team that has some ability to play together, they're going to be the team that ends up winning LCS. So I would be very surprised if C9 don't win, even though FlyQuest do have the players. Like FlyQuest could just wake up and smurf. I mean, if they're able to find some strategies that worked for them before, maybe some type of Prince Zeri with like a bunch of Maokai coming in for Spica, maybe that could be something that could get them over the hump. It just doesn't feel like that team is really clicking.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things there, Monte, where FlyQuest they've woken up and they're ready to be the world beaters that we thought they were, or was it, hey, 100 Thieves are the frauds and FlyQuest were the beneficiaries of that?
FlyQuest just doesn't understand that people can be in fog, or 100 Thieves doesn't understand that people can be in fog of war. So maybe next season they'll get that one. I think with FlyQuest, while their performance against 100 Thieves was as expected, you could still see some of the faults that they had, especially in the second game of the series where they fell down in the early game again. And I agree with Dom that the cohesiveness is really key, because it feels like Cloud9 is good enough. Even so, first off, we got to see Cloud9 2-0 FlyQuest in the last week of competition, because they also played the tiebreaker game. And even in the game where M&S was playing quite badly on the Jace, Cloud9 was still able to cobble together the teamwork to prevent the dive in top lane, which then ended up getting 4 kills over to Berserker on the Draven. I agree that with Dom that their cohesiveness is really like the biggest factor, and it feels like there are multiple players that are capable of carrying when this roster needs it. Whereas FlyQuest, it almost feels as though they're battling against themselves at times to see if they can come back from these rather devastating early game states. And the total coordination just really isn't there. Cloud9, even though I'm not sure they have individually better players, like pound for pound, like I'm not going to say M&S is a better player than Vikla, because that would be ridiculous, I think. And, I think obviously Impact was playoff Impact again, which really helped FlyQuest, and that could be a difference maker. Obviously, like playoff Impact, as we've said, just hits different. I mean, he levels up every single fucking time. So if he's capable of carrying some of these games, or kind of taking over comms for his team and making sure that coordination happens, then maybe they can do it. I don't think it's clear cut. But I do think as of the games we've seen, and even we've seen this matchup very recently, and I still think Cloud9 is probably likely to take the title.
All right. Well, Cloud9 moving in as the favorite, less so on pound-to-pound talent. Let's move to the bottom side of the bracket. We got to touch on Golden Guardians by way of talking about 100 Thieves. EG, right? And CLG. I guess we'll talk about CLG a little bit here, but mostly EG, they were in one of what felt like to me, as someone who's been around the team now for a year and change, and knowing some of the guys personally, that felt like the last couple of weeks with the COVID hitting and the loss streak felt like some of the most turbulent periods with the team. Like they weren't as joyous, they weren't available for interviews. Like it felt weird. It definitely felt weird.
Maybe there were some other reasons they weren't available for interviews. I don't know.
Sure. But
yeah, really? Why
did
something happen with that organization?
Yeah, they didn't want to answer questions about
available for remote interviews, and they weren't as available as usual, I'd say. I think that it just felt different. It just felt different. You don't know what you're gonna get when they bounce back, and then they
Nicole LaPointe Jameson just decided to make blacklist everybody who does interviews with the team instead of just select people like she did in the past.
Oh, okay. Interesting. No, I was gonna say maybe if the team isn't responsive, you could get a interview with somebody higher up in the organization, perhaps. Some questions that could be answered.
All right. Well, EG. Did they surprise you or not?
This is how Dgon tries to he tries to stay on everyone's good side, and we just have to brand him as like, nope, you are now with us. They are going to hate you.
I love you guys. I love everyone. Why can't I love everyone, man?
Yeah, Dgon's the type of guy when his girlfriend asks if she loves him or if he loves her, he says, "Oh, I love everyone." Of course I love you.
That one has not gone well. I think I'm having an existential crisis live on broadcast.
All right. So we can talk about EG. They looked way better, obviously. I mean, we knew this was going to happen. Like, it's the shit you mentioned, Dgon. I think there was some combination of the Danny drama plus the
mega COVID
plus the giga COVID that fogged Jojo Pion's brain. Like, they're definitely all over the COVID. They were playing remotely. Look, I mean, their coaches were tweeting that they weren't able to even get like good practice in because of the sickness with the players. We knew this team was better than what they
think about this. Think about this one fact. How sick must Jojo have been to get to take a match off? We know how hard it is to get a fucking match off for Evil Geniuses, right? So if Jojo missed the match, holy shit, that motherfucker must have been on
send him to the doctor immediately. Send him to the doctor. How starving is Jojo at this point in time?
Yeah, like it's crazy, man. Okay, never mind. Maybe that's not it. You got to get us out of here. Oh yeah, EG. Yeah, they're playing a lot better.
No, you got it. You got this one, dog.
Yeah, no. Hey, they didn't have the best series, but CLG, they look pretty good versus Cloud9, and EG beat them harder than C9 did. So hey, it is what it is.
All right. So given the fact that we've got an EG in form now that distractions and Astro COVID is now behind them, and then Golden Guardians battle tested and have like what is that called, Monte? When it's like the underdog team that everyone wants to win for like plot armor. I think Golden Guardians have plot armor here, and found something that works for them. They showed off like, hey, we do have a top laner that can play something. How do you feel about this head-to-head matchup?
I think EG if they're in the four, look, I don't think CLG played. I think CLG played a much better series against Cloud9 than they did against EG. I was pretty disappointed in the way they played against EG overall. But if EG is in this form and if Someday is just allowed to play Malphite, I mean, this is like the most Someday champion of all time, right? Just like weak side, hard engaged tank champion. Like this is
isn't that sad? That's the Someday champion. Like if you think about just who Someday is, like
Someday's the rock of the top lane, Dom. How
there we go.
He's just worse than Impact. Impact is just he's just more rocky.
Yeah.
So
the Rock and Rocky. There you go.
Look, I think EG looks super stable in this scenario. They may even be better than FlyQuest or Cloud9. That's certainly a possibility. I think it was difficult to read because CLG was playing kind of uniquely badly in this series. It's the same shit where I watched the Gen G versus Hanwha series and I'm like, is Gen G the best team, or is it just because Hanwha's playing bad that they look so good and together? So I didn't really get a read off of this series, I have to say.
I'm just surprised that both of you are. It feels like pretty high on EG, given the fact that we know that CLG didn't play as well, and also like through that last game as well.
I mean, I think EG is just the type of team. Like they're just the team that's gonna win if you just look at NA history, right? All these players, they've been far in LCS before. They know what it's like to be there. They know how to develop those LCS ass comps and just go to objectives, and they're just gonna wait for Golden Guardians to make a mistake. And Golden Guardians will make mistakes. Like Golden Guardians probably shouldn't have won that series versus 100 Thieves with how they played a lot of the early games. And I just think that these types of players are going to capitalize. I mean, Vulcan has made a living off farming Huhi for titles, right? Like that's what he does. Like that's who he is. Like he's just going to farm him again, I assume.
That's a good point. And I forgot in the post-game interview, Vulcan said, "Thank God we won because I played like such trash." I think he might have said shit on broadcast. I don't remember, but like he wasn't wrong. There were a couple times where he made some crazy mistakes, and still the team was able to capitalize in the team fights for him and whatnot. So imagining now, having JoJo gone through a slump, having Inspired having suffered because JoJo's going through a slump, and then Vulcan going through a slump, and now it's all kind of out of the system. Okay, you've convinced me a little bit more.
I mean,
some
of JoJo's mistakes were clearly him being sick. Like, JoJo sometimes ints, but not like we were seeing in some of those last couple weeks of LCS. That was abnormal inting even for JoJo.
Yeah, like I was a little sick, but it wasn't playoffs, so things will probably be better. Yeah, I'll just stop being dumb. I love doing JoJo impressions. He always starts with, yeah, like every time. It's so good. All right. Well, so our 3 teams going to Raleigh, North Carolina, famous for the barbecue sauce that Monte and Dom love, are EG, FlyQuest, and Cloud9. Cloud9 will be the number 1 seed. FlyQuest, presumably better than EG, will be the one that makes it through the finals if we assume that they're playing in the 3rd place game. I'll pose that one to you, Dom.
Yeah, I think so. I think that we'll just end up getting we'll probably just end up getting a rematch of the upper bracket finals and finals. So I don't know. I think EG had a very weird split, and they don't really look they don't look as cohesive as Cloud9. So I don't think that they'll be able to beat FlyQuest in the same way that I predict C9 to be able to beat FlyQuest. I think they're going to end up just getting overpowered by just better players when they play FlyQuest.
Monte, you, and then I have one more question.
Concur.
Okay. Let's touch on CLG for a little bit, right? They, again, going along with this theme of this week being they were who they thought they were.
Look, here's what needs to be said about CLG. This is what you're getting forever with CLG. They are not individually skilled enough to when we are talking about, it's very different. It's the same. Okay, let me put it this way. It's the same shit you see in certain matches, and we'll talk about LEC, but in best of ones where you're playing, 3 different teams in best of ones in a given week, fundamentals can carry you very far. Like if you have a very stable play style, you have good fundamentals when it comes to like teamwork and coordination, it can get you pretty, into a pretty decent spot in the regular season standings. It is entirely different when you have a week to prepare or several days to prepare for a single opponent in a best of 5, and you're really like studying that player's tendencies, their champion pools, thinking about the matchups, being able to field a diverse array of team compositions across multiple games. And CLG, they're just not individually good enough. Like they're just not. I don't know if any of these players, I forget who was in the actual like all pro rankings, but I think that Dokla, when we had our discussion on this show, was really, and maybe Palafox would be the only players that would even like be threatening to crack the top 3. And that's just not good enough when we're talking about being in these playoff scenarios. And yeah, they had the unfortunately they met EG. Like I wish we could have seen like 100 Thieves versus CLG series in the lower bracket, but because EG lost a bunch of games because of the problems that we talked about at the end of the split, EG ended up in the lower bracket, and that just kind of sucks for CLG, right? Like if they played Golden Guardians or if they played 100 Thieves, maybe this is a very different story, right? But I think CLG honestly deserves to be commended for how far they got with the players that they have. They are more than the sum of their parts, but this is not a team that's going to win a title. We just have to be real about that.
I think the big question, though, especially across both playoff series, is why was Big Dokes playing Sion every single game? Like it spawned one of the newest memes of the LCS, which is tilted Dokla bended over at the table just like this after I think game 2 or game 3 of playing Sion.
Yeah,
crushed. What happened? Why are they doing that?
What I don't understand is like he doesn't even play Sion well. He's a bad Sion player. Like when you look at his spacing, when you look at his awareness of where his carries are, if they can do damage or not, compare him to somebody like Impact, it's night and day. You're looking at literally different champions. I mean, same like Fudge is somebody who's also able to understand these types of like angles as to how far they can walk up to allow their carries to deal damage. And Dogla just doesn't have that knowledge. He's the guy who you want to see, like, you want to give him something like Yone, where he's able to create space by dealing damage. He doesn't want to create space by just like being only tanky and having to like play on a tether with his AD carry. He wants to create space by seeing an opportunity, like going in, chunking 3 people with like Gwen or Yone or something, and then trying to live. That's when he's at his best. So I thought it really didn't work. Also, when you looked at the type of series that Luger was having, Luger was sprinting it. If that's guy who you're expecting to carry every single fight, and you're just gonna go sign, you're gonna put it all on the guy who's like choking in the moment, I think it just doesn't make sense. I think the coaches should have altered the way that they played. They should have tried something different. Give Dokla one of his picks and allow him to have a chance to carry. I mean, obviously Dokla versus Someday, you don't think he's gonna be able to win that matchup super hard, but look, just ban a Malphite, give him like a Yone or something. I could see him like winning a game. He could win a game for you. Might put you in a position where maybe Luger gets out of his slump or starts playing better, get some confidence, and then you end up, being able to go back to something that would, work for him. I think that you just had more options and they didn't really use their tools the best they could have.
And the difficult part, because I don't want to rewrite history here, Luger did have a pretty good season, and in the C9 series had moments where he was carrying, but in the EG series, he got outpointed by FBI every time. It actually made me feel pretty good.
I mean, he couldn't flash Malphite ulti. It was just tough. It was like, man, like you got to be able to dodge something.
Yeah, he had flash, like, I think almost every time he died to the Malphite ulti, and cleanse a couple of times where he got hit by a stun and then didn't.
Or he like stopwatched the Malphite ult instead of flashing it, and it's like, well, now you're just in the middle of the whole enemy team.
Yeah, it was a tough race for him, and I think that was a bummer. And I don't think it's a stretch to be like, well, Poom has been the weakest link in the team, and he also played to his standard. So Poom played to his normal, like,
he's bad and he played bad. Nice. Yeah. So, like, you got what you deserved. Like,
you know me, I word things differently, and so he wasn't great, didn't play great, but then surprisingly, Luger didn't play great, and they did not unlock Dokla. Now we got tilted Dokla gif, even though he said, if you look closely, I was not tilted. He at least made light of it. I think that's really cool and whatnot, but that just seemed a little rough. All right.
That's the difference between me and you, Dgon. If I were to say the same thing, I would say that brother should be working at McDonald's. That's what I would say.
I think that guy's got a diverse skill set. All right. Well, there you have it. We went through our LCS playoffs and the future champion of it. But speaking of future telling, we've got a guy here who's been right a lot of the times. And we're going to go back to that well with a question here. nostraDOMus, tell us, predict the future for us in our newest segment, our newest edition of the segment, nostraDOMus. Let's get to it.
All right, so speaking of flipping burgers, we got somebody else who's going to be doing that soon. My boy Evie, I hope to God he has played his last game of LEC. He ran it, like, he had a couple good games at the end here, but he had such a bad split. He's weighing the team down so much. Can we please just get some rookie ERL talent that for Jankos to lead? I mean, you see people like Oscar eclipse Evie in 3 weeks of play. Can we get somebody else in the top lane? I am sick and tired of seeing my fucking goat Jankos get ran down over and over again. And while you're at it, you can take Ruby with you. All right? Like Ruby, just put him on the same fucking flight. It's too much. These guys run it down mercilessly every game for no reason. I don't understand it, man. I don't understand it. Why are we importing people in their mid to late 20s that aren't even mechanically good and expecting them to be a veteran presence or a leader? How are you going to lead anyone when you don't know what the fuck you're doing in the first place? Who are you leading, bro?
The LEC already got a better leader.
Yeah, they already got a better leader.
Hey, and
that motherfucker was rotting.
It took me a second.
That guy was rotting in the ERL/NA fucking academy system. Like, come on, man. There has to be better talent than this. Please. We got Wonder riding the fucking pine. We've got just a bunch of people that deserve the chance. You have a bunch of people in LFL that deserve a chance to at least play. You can't tell me that even a player like Ragnar in LFL would not just be a better player than Evie after all this time that we've seen him. It's enough. I've had enough.
Monte, I pose a question to you because of the way that Dom describes the discrepancy between his goat Yankos and his goat, like Billy Goat, Evie. Is there a larger discrepancy if we've ever like just looked at the 50 players of a starting roster, 10, 10, and 10? Has there been a bigger discrepancy with a top player playing with like one of the worst players in the league?
Closer to no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
You can use an historic as well.
Famously, Mad Life in space back in the day, because the joke was that Mad Life was in space prison. Like I was in the same lane, so it was even more exciting in certain ways.
I played with Zekent. I'm throwing that out there. like it was pretty tough. He played 8 games. We never saw him again. Like it was not the best. But yeah.
All right.
I mean, I've watched Viper get inted by half the Chinese and Korean servers, so it's enough.
You guys hit the point that I wanted there. 2 historical examples. Dom, use an example that is historical that didn't involve.
I mean, like here's a fun one for you. In terms of top laners and junglers, so hilariously, Long Panda, arguably the worst top laner in Korean history,
CJ, right?
used to have Insec as his jungler.
Yeah,
think about that.
I mean, if you want to go LCK throughout history, I mean, Faker, the GOAT of all time, he played with Piglet. Like that is crazy. That is whoa. That was just nuts. All right. Kidding.
Everyone playing a Power Spike Bingo at home. We've got a Zekent flame. We've got a Piglet flame.
Space Prison. Nobody's heard that one in a very long time.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I don't think I've heard that one before. So that one even predates me.
Oh, there used to be jokes about like an actual outer space prison that Mad Life was trapped in.
Got it. Yeah, I understand how it works, but I just never heard of that one before. For our bingo card holders, don't worry, we're talking LPL in a little bit, so we'll get some classic Tarzan love here from Monte, and then there's a strong chance that we will be chatting Fnatic here. So yeah, don't worry, bingo cards will be filled out by the end of this episode for sure. Thank you for playing that game with me, guys. Thank you, nostraDOMus, for letting us know. Without leaks, nostraDOMus is just now turned into leaks. League Central, but 2 potential candidates for expanding their skill set.
Yeah. It's either leaks or I just pick a couple players to verbally abuse. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 ways that this goes normally.
Yeah, I was laughing because you said just put them on the same plan. I was like, they live in different areas, Dom. They don't need to be on the same plan.
Yeah, but it could be a vacation, to be honest. And be like, it's like a 1-hour flight, right? Like,
yeah.
What is the flight time from Korea to Japan?
2 hours about.
Yeah, okay, it's not bad. Doesn't everyone want to go to Japan? I want to go to Japan. I feel like everyone wants to like visit Japan once.
Yeah, Japan's great. Master's going to be there this year. All right. Thank you, Future Teller nostraDOMus. Next up, our segment of Keep or Kick. It's 2 playoff teams. And, maybe not top seeds, but top name recognition. They should be playing better than where they're at and trending generally in the right direction compared to last season. Let's figure it out. Who would you keep? Who would you kick between Fnatic and Koi? Let's get into it. Simple question, Dom. Keep or kick? Fnatic or Koi?
I'm going to kick them. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to kick them both. Okay, so for this one, I am going to, after recent events, I would keep Fnatic and kick Koi because because I think Fnatic, they have some they're kind of fun to watch. Like I like seeing Oscar play well. Like he's someone who you want to see succeed. Because he was really thrown to the fucking wolves, and he's kind of thriving right now, which is really cool to watch. I mean, he just looks so much better in just 3 weeks of playing LEC, or like 2 weeks actually from when he first played. So I'm rooting for Oscar. I'm down for a resurgence here from Razork and Humanoid. They've been playing a little bit better together as well. And like they're like Advien's a pretty vocal guy. He's just a nice guy who you're rooting for, who plays pretty well. Like not nice guy in terms of like not the way Evie's a nice guy where I just say it's so I can't be flamed for other things. He's a guy who you want to see do well. Like I think everyone on the team, like Reckless included, they all have reasons why you want to see them perform, and at least they look like they're getting better. They're trending in the right direction. Whereas Koi they're so frustrating to watch because like you guys used to be good and now you're just so fucking bad. And why are you so bad? Why can't you guys lane anymore bot 2v2? It's just so frustrating to watch over and over again. And you just feel like this Koi team is never going to be better than they were in summer of last year. They're never going to be better than that. And I don't mean in terms of placing. I mean in terms of like as a unit, they will never be able to be more proficient than they were before. I don't think the Shigenda experiment has really worked out well. Balrog's eventually we knew he was going to eventually get exposed, but he's just getting exposed constantly. He's getting his ass beat by everyone almost at this point. Tons of bad games from him. And the bot lane that used to be the like shining part of the team, that's now a massive issue. They just lose lane all the time. So I think Larsen's still good, but he's Larsen, right? He's not going to be the guy who's going to drag a terrible team up the rankings. He's going to play the game well and just make good decisions and lane well.
Yeah, he's a very consistent player, but he doesn't have necessarily the same pop-off potential that a player like Caps has because that's just not his style. Like he's a very safe player most of the time. And I think when it comes to, I agree with Dom's take because at least Fnatic, it feels like there's a direction that is trending upwards and there's growth that is possible with this team. Whereas Koi, like I'm so sick of them playing super badly in the early game and then just trying to have to watch them scrape it together in the late game. And what really feels bad about Koi is that everybody is doing worse as a result of getting rid of LPL. Like LPL is doing worse on Excel. The rest of Koi/Rogue is now doing worse. The meta is shifted in a way that has made Malrong like look really pretty terrible. And a lot of the established synergy that you would have hoped to have seen with this team by just slotting in a new top laner just hasn't worked out. So it feels like the experiment has failed on the whole, and that I don't know how you really get better without a roster change at this point in time. Whereas Fnatic made the roster changes and was right. I think they were rightfully criticized at first for those roster changes.
Yeah.
And I'm actually very impressed with Oscarinen because getting the shit that he copped for his terrible performances and being able to power through that to some pretty good performances right now is inspiring, honestly. Like, I think it's really fun to watch that.
Clip it, heartfelt Monte. This doesn't happen too often, but he's right. Like I was gonna bring up the example of just kind of like the Baron backdoor thing we're talking about with KT and T1. Here's a very clear example of a lose-lose situation playing out where neither party is better with Odo, and that just feels really bad for this Koi roster. And then also what happened to Oscar out, there was all the crap takes, not only from internally but the community was just dumping on him, and he found a way in. It was the Frankie Ward interview buff, man. Put him on stage, get him a little teary-eyed, speak some English, bam, you're back in it. Now you are in playoffs, young man. And the change for this roster that I think mattered the most. Like, yes, Ruck's a little bit too, but it's still the same thing. Hey, Reckless, just play some hyper carry. All right, Jinx, no. Zeri, no. Okay, you can play Sivir, sure, whatever. Play some hyper carry, and Advin will babysit you. It's really cool. Cool to see Oscar in there.
I will say this, though, that I think Koi has a higher chance of making it into the top two and into the next stage of the split than Fnatic does, partially because of the way that the brackets have shaken out. And again, it's a very as well as BDS has done and SK have done in the regular splits. I mean, Koi is just a much more battle tested team when it comes to playoffs with much more veteran players. And BDS's style has been fine, but I feel like BDS is in some ways, it's not obviously one-to-one, but somewhat analogous to CLG in that they may be overperforming based on having really solid fundamentals and having like a very solid sense of their own style that might be able to be picked apart in a playoff scenario, which could give an advantage to Koi. Whereas Fnatic, I would be surprised if we saw a different result besides Astralis and Vitality heading out of Group A. Like I see a world where it could be like G2 and Koi in Group B. And even G2 has been a little rocky recently, but they're also G2, so I expect them to get their shit together.
Dom.
Yeah, I feel similarly. I mean, I could see potentially Mad Lions getting it together and just like beating out Astralis in a series where you don't even feel good about Mad getting out, but you're like,
when was the last time we felt good about Mad? Nobody's felt good about Mad Lions in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like they like kind of had an interesting style. Like they at least were semi-cohesive at the end of last split where they made their run, where they ended up beating Koi and stuff. Like they had some interesting takes where they were one of the teams that was able to play Gragas mid. And now after watching LEC, we know how rare it is for somebody to be good at Gragas mid. Like everyone sucks. Absolute massive dick at this champion. It is fucking crazy how bad people are at Gragas mid. ER combos, Faker. No one can do it.
Except but Nisqy and Caps. Except Faker.
Yeah. Yeah, Faker, for sure.
I think the last time I felt good about Mad Lions was their World's Jersey reveal. That was pretty tight. That was a great music video. Yeah, that was a great piece of art there. Sorry, Tom, I didn't mean to cut you off. Were you?
No, I mean, that's pretty much it. I could see a team like Mad Lions just potentially beating Astralis in a best of 5 because Astralis, you know, they're even though now they're kind of expected to win a best of 5, they're not a team that you'd think would be good in best of 5s when you look at the way they play the game. They look like a team that should be able to be prepped for and beaten. And they had a pretty good week this week. I mean, they had a great week this week. They went 3-0. But before this, no one was down to just be like, yep, they're just the best. They might just be the best team.
They also had a very easy week against two of, both the teams that ended up being eliminated. Right, Heretics and Excel. And look, I don't think Astralis is a lot of variance
with Astralis playstyle, right?
Yeah. Look, and you know what? You kind of have a general sense of what you're gonna. You don't necessarily know that the Zed's coming out, but you know who Leader is as a player, which makes Astralis very fun to watch. Like I love watching Astralis because they are wacky, but wacky teams typically have they struggle in BO5s. Unless you're G2.
Was that the Excel game that they were winning until they lost? Was that the big throw against Astralis this week? I forgot which one that was. It was day one. Day one.
Oh, that was are you talking about the Koi XL one, maybe?
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's what it was. It was Koi XL. Yeah, never mind.
That was that's why you hate watching Koi, because you win, like they win that game and you're like, fuck you deserve to lose. Like, it's like when you lose a game in solo queue, but you DC for 5 minutes, like halfway through, and you come back and you can tell you're like better than your opponents, but they're just so far ahead from being able to farm 5 extra minutes and they're just up an item on you and you can't win. It's that type of feeling where you're like, well, fuck this team. They don't deserve to win. They shouldn't have won, but they did.
Honestly, it was probably worse for Koi fans because now there was an opportunity to make a very clear roster move. Now they can't do that. They can't necessarily just fight. They have to wait to see if this plays out. If they do okay and finish like 4th, they might just stick with the roster again. Whereas if you lost and didn't make it to the playoffs, boom, roster move, easy. All right. Well, there you have it. That is our keep or kick. It's keep Fnatic's growth, but also keep Koi to possibly make it out of the playoff bracket based off of the way the groups shook out. We'll see what happens here in the future. All right, to close it on out here on this episode of Power Spike, we got a little high key, low key, no key. Over in the East, it's LPL playoff time. It was a push there to the finish. IG and You Should Know Me will have to wait to be known until next split. But we've got a bunch of teams still left on in it. So let's get to it. This week's high key, low key, no key. Hi, Dom. It was close. I mean, it was just IG mainly getting there, but there was a couple teams trying to punch up and ruin some playoff runs. Ninja Pajamas sneaking a win there against IG, kind of gatekeeping them from getting in. But set the stage for us here as we move to the best playoff bracket in LoL Esports.
Yeah, so if you aren't familiar with how LPL works, it is a 10-team playoff bracket, and it's tiered based off your seeding in the regular season, which means that the bottom 4 teams, so 7 through 10, end up playing each other, and that's round 1. And then the winners of that will play 5th, 6th seed, and then the winners of that play 3rd, 4th. Winners of that play 1, 2, and then it becomes a double elimination bracket. Once the 3rd, 4th match is played, or the 3 and 4 seeds play their match, the winners of that will all get double elimination as well as the 1st and 2nd team. So it's a lot of League of Legends. You know, it's just a lot of series. I believe it's 12 series overall, which is just a ton of league to watch.
It's 12,
and yeah, and it's pretty fun to watch too, because there's so many storylines, there's so many games that are played. So, for example, just last year's summer playoffs, you have LNG. You normally have a team that, like WE before LNG, that will start in round 1, and you'll get to see them play best of ones, best of 5, best of 5, best of 5. They might play something like 30 games. Like, you might get like 25 games from one team. Like, it's fucking crazy the amount of games that you can see from one team, and just see all the iterations and how teams adapt. And also, it's played extremely quickly. You know, it's not one of these playoffs where there's, you know, you play like 4 games here, and then you wait a week, and then you play like another couple games. No, it's just you start going through the gauntlet, and it is just best of 5s after best of 5. So super fun to watch. And also this split, we have just a bunch of different storylines. Obviously, RNG had roster issues, coach trouble. They made it to playoffs, but they're starting in round 1. Top Esports was looking like one of the best teams. They have their own roster issue, or they had their own coach issue. Coach ended up stepping down. They're in round 1 as well. So off the bat, you're just going to get top teams playing, or perceived top teams. Most people thought that RNG Top Esports would be like these top 6 teams in China. From there, you have OMG, which is my favorite team, and BLG. They'll be playing the winners of the first round team, and then you have the 3rd, 4th, the LNG, Weibo, JDG, Edward Gaming, all the best teams in China coming in later in the bracket. So I'm excited to watch it, especially when you get these first playoff series. You get a best of 5 between 2 teams that are not that great. Generally, it is just a complete fist fight. When you get like an RNG TT, you're normally just going to get a lot of fucking kills in the game. So they're pretty fun to watch. The middle pack LPL teams, it's what I've said on the show before, they're always bangers. So those matches are always fucking bangers, because they're not the smartest teams. They're not the best macro teams, but they know how to fucking fight, and they have some hands. So you get to watch a lot of skill checks, which is what I like about League of Legends. Like, that is what I care about. I don't actually like macro. Having to learn macro as a pro player,
I love
like,
macro.
yeah. I mean, I just don't like, I'd rather kill, like, when I played League of Legends, I just wanted to kill other people in game. Like, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to kill people and just outplay people over and over again. I had to learn vision and control and macro through just like studying the game. That was boring. That was like going to school for me. So for me, this is like where I think the most fun League of Legends is, when you get some of these types of
this is why Dom hates Genji, and I love them guys. This is why.
There's video footage of Coach Monte teaching CLG. You could win the game without getting any kills by killing the towers and kill the. I remember that one vividly there.
Yep.
All right, so Dom set the table for us on the gauntlet that is the LPL playoffs and some of the teams that are there. Monte, let's start with you. A lot of teams to choose from, the 10 teams that have qualified on in. What are your no-key squads that you're not excited to see and or not expecting to make it far? Whether it's in the first round or maybe a round 3 upset.
I guess I'll have a slightly spicy take here, which is that my no key team is very likely, I think, to make it into the top 4, which is Weibo. Weibo's just been a team that I feel has been really disappointing, considering the caliber of players that are on this roster. And I think probably I would much rather have either. I feel like there's 3 teams on the other side of the bracket in top OMG and LNG that I would all rather have in the top 4 for various entertainment reasons, rather than Weibo Gaming. I think Weibo, people will remember some of the times like, oh, well, they beat JDG and blah, blah, blah. But JDG kind of just straight into them. And it wasn't really a Weibo win so much as a JDG loss, I would say. And there's been a lot of questionable performances by the Shy in the laning phase, by Karsa. Maybe Zhao, whose status as the King of Spring is just absolutely undefeatable, and that he will make some kind of Phoenix-like rise through this bracket. But for me, Weibo really has not lived up to the individual ability of the players on this roster. So I'm not super excited about them.
All right, Dom, who's your no-key squad?
For me, it's Top Esports. Like, I think they'll win the first round. I think they'll probably win the second round versus OMG2, which sucks to fucking say. I hate that that's a reality.
You hate that Rookie might actually make it a deeper run.
I love Rookie, but I hate watching him get ented. You know, it's the same way where I just kind of want like Hodmal Life to lose so I don't have to watch Viper get griefed anymore, because I don't think that Viper has a legitimate chance to win. So I'd rather just see KT just shit on them. Okay, just get them out of there. I don't even think about that team existing. I feel the same way with Top Esports. I have no faith. TN has just become old TN. He's becoming Worlds TN somehow in fucking March. It's crazy. How the fuck are you Worlds TN in March? You normally have 6 more months before you get into this type of form. So this is insane. You know, Jack 11 Mark are just okay, and the top lane situation is pretty bad as well. That being said, WE is garbage. I think that they'll just get clapped by Top Esports. But I'm not really excited for Top Esports. I feel like they're so much worse than what they should be. They should be a top 2 team. They should be up there with JDG. We should get the 5-game banger that we got, 2 of the 5-game bangers that we got from last LPL playoffs. But instead, we have this Top Esports, this disgusting Top Esports.
I'm actually low-key excited for Top Esports because I want this roster to rediscover all of their peak forms from previous iterations and actually have an epic run from the round 1 of this bracket. Like, what happens if they end up playing in what? Like, they could end up playing 7 best of 5s. What happens if they end up playing 7 best of 5s and making it into the finals? Wouldn't that, I'm kind of low-key hyped if that could actually happen. Like, yeah, they've been bad recently, but they were stronger earlier in the split. And we know these players have a significantly higher ceiling. So I am low-key excited for Top because I want them to do well. Now, I would be sad if they beat LNG, because I would love to see LNG in double elimination. But if that's the form that Top Esports, if we get, you know, the ultimate quality of Top Esports, then it could be very exciting. Like, watching this team go from the end of the bracket to possibly MSI could be really thrilling.
That's fascinating. I don't think that was on most people's bingo card. I thought it was going to be, here we go. Monte talks about how Tarzan and Scout are just destroying everyone in the LPL.
I do love Tarzan and Scout.
And then also I love how Dom's no key is because he's actually high key excited about them, but knows it's going to be a letdown. Let's just put you down early and not have you.
I am low key excited for Top just because the potential of what they could accomplish could be so fucking cool, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, for me, so the main thing for me here is that, like, a lot of people don't understand my relationship with TN. I started out as the biggest TN hater. I was the guy that was flaming him perma for what he did to DoNB in Worlds 2021. Like, he just sprinted it so hard. So it took a year of him playing well for me to finally admit, I'm like, oh, I guess he's just the guy. It started ironically. It's like, oh, he's playing well. Oh, he's still playing well. I had to watch a year to cure my hatred, where I was like, you know what? Maybe he's just the GOAT. Then I started liking him, and then he immediately let me down in Worlds. And now he's fucking doing the same thing. Now he's like one of my favorite players right now. So I'm just like,
this is really
so
just
hard for me to.
This is the ultimate version of the razor cake, Dom, because you started as someone who hated cake, and then you tasted a cake so delicious that you decided that you liked cake, and then there were razors in it.
And now I'm trying to learn how to love razors.
They converted you to loving cake, but the cake had the razors. I love it. It's a beautiful thing.
All right. So there we have it. There's our two. Wait, who's your Loki, Dom?
My Loki? Oh
Yeah.
wait, I didn't do my Loki yet.
Didn't do your Loki. Okay, yeah. Sorry, you went back in on describing your no key, which I thought is also your low key. You could do that, but who's your low key, maybe like sleeper team, a team that you're kind of excited about, but not your player favorite.
I mean, I'm low key excited for RNG. I think that RNG they're not good right now, but I've always liked the way RNG played. I love watching Gala play. He's one of my favorite players to watch, especially when he's playing like his picks. And even though they had like some bad series towards the end, overall they had like a pretty convincing Weibo series. I mean, that's at least something to get excited about. So I just want to see them do well. I feel like these players have been so historically good that it's pretty sad how they've been playing recently, or how they played over the course of most of the split. But I just think that they're kind of what Monte said about TES. I feel that same way about RNG, where if they end up getting it together and there's that fucking storyline, RNG make it somehow back to fucking MSI. It's like, holy shit, the team that just won the last 2 MSIs is back at MSI. That would be fucking sick. So I'm low-key excited.
I like that.
It's funny because the reasoning sounds the same for like top esports. Just throw that out there. Like, look at these players that have all this, history behind them that could achieve that potential, but slightly.
But the difference is that Tien is a razor cake and RNG just wins MSI every time. So.
Yeah. They only won because of 35 ping and blue side advantage, though. So it didn't actually count. They actually only won once.
I wonder which type of fan would say that. I don't know. All right.
Oh no, the coaching staff was just willing to say it. I mean, it doesn't even have to be a fan anymore. We can't even lose gracefully at this one. It's straight from the coaching staff.
Monte, give me your high key. Who's your favorite team moving into the LPL playoffs?
Well, I would say LNG, but I don't know if they have some pretty clear weaknesses. So I will switch it up to EDG because, as we said, I like the macro, right? And EDG is the Gen G of LPL. Even down to it's gonna answer some really great questions about who the best rookie player in the world is in spring of this year, because it's down to Leave or Pays. Both these guys have been absolutely amazing. Pays came to play in the playoffs. He didn't get the rookie nerves. He absolutely came out, was probably the best player on Gen G in the series that they played already. So I love to see that. But Leave has been really like a revelation. And this team that nobody thought would be doing this well, nobody thought might be the very best team in the LPL at the start of the year when JDG and Top had this immense star power. EDG had clearly kind of gone backwards from the Scout and Viper era when it came to player for player potential. They've gotten it together. They look super cohesive. They're a very smart team and they're very fun to watch from a macro perspective. So I mean, we said it before, like JDG and EDG are the teams we want to see at MSI because they are so very different. They have their unique play styles. It would be really cool to watch both of these rosters, but I am hyped about the storyline from EDG. And if they could make like the fucking epic Cinderella run when all the talk was JDG and top esports, and we were all focusing so much on what EDG lost at the start of the year. And now here they are right up in the top 2, guaranteed into the double elimination. This team's really fun.
Yep. And one thing that we were so focused on what they lost that we didn't even realize what they gained in the offseason, which was they gained Kenju back. I think that is actually massive. Like Kenju as a coach, people only really know him from the series. They did a documentary, and an LPL documentary where they went into Kenju's coaching, and he would just talk about sometimes the player just needs a verbal beatdown. And it was like, what? It's like, yeah, I had to verbally beat down Flaudre so that we were able to win the series. So like that is who he is. But if you look at this guy's results, this guy has insane fucking results. Kenju. So if people don't know, he was the coach of EDG when they won Summer Split, right? They won Summer Split and then they won Worlds. And then he goes to RNG and they win Spring Split and then they win MSI. So he won the Grand Slam, the unofficial Grand Slam, for like 4 major tournaments in a row. And, every team that he's coaching, it just looks good. They look like a fucking team. They play to what you'd expect their limits to be. So I think it's great for Kenju, and I think it's huge for Mako. as a player. I mean, he's somebody who's got to be in the conversation at this point for being one of the best supports of all time. With his level of play, for when you think about how long he's played, he's got all the accolades, tons of LPL titles, MSI Championship, World Championship. What more could you want from a player's career? So he's always good, and part of the reason why EDG is the best macro team in China is because you have Mako. He's been one of the best macro players in the world for years now, like for years and years and years and years. Guy's a genius.
So is that your high key? Because I was
no.
kind of
I'm high key excited for OMG, baby.
It is. All right.
OMG.
All right.
The first time I don't even know when was the last time OMG made it to the second round of playoffs. Now they make it by default this time because that's where they're seated in, because they actually placed 5th, 6th. But I'm even going back like 2018, were they even in there? Like they never qualified for I mean, their first round, just out instantly for so long at this point. And now they've made it to at least the second round. My stupid ass team with their 0 macro and just fucking perma fighting melee champions.
They've had some really good macro, actually. I mean, they wouldn't have won some of those games without some pretty impressive macro calls, I think.
I mean, their macro is more like, we're just gonna fight you here, macro. Like it's not like macro, like we're gonna trade this for that. It's like, hey, we're down 7k gold. They don't think we can fight, but I think we can fight. And then they just go in there and they just scrap it out and somehow they win a fight. So I fucking love this team.
If you stuck OMG in that KT T1 series, people would be like, oh, they would lose on macro. They would be like, we just wouldn't be in that position.
All I'm saying is they won the third JDG game because they had a good macro call. That's all I'm saying.
and because Ruler ended up not critting in 3 fucking autos, but we won't talk about it with 55% crit.
Yeah, wait, we don't have any no keys left for JDG. It's just assumed that they're gonna go through.
High keys?
Any keys? We didn't use any keys on JDG.
I mean, JDG, they should just be the best team.
All right. Yeah. All right. Well, there you have it. Those are our high key, low key, and no key for the LPL. Thank you for the breakdown, Dom and Monte, both of you guys, for sharing that one. Playoff series starts very, very soon. Again, the best playoff bracket in League of Legends until we get to MSI and see how that one works out. Hopefully, it'll work out well. All right. That's our show this week, guys. Playoffs are here. A lot of proving what we thought was true at the beginning of the year end up becoming true. But now it's time to hopefully get excited to see some top tier League of Legends across all the different areas. All right, let's close it on off. Where else? What you got, Monte?
I have business calls this week. Maybe eventually I'll be able to stream again. The dream, guys. But got a lot of other shit to do. So enjoy. Summoning Insight will be tomorrow. Best Damn League show. Dom and Thorin be on Wednesday.
Yeah, the people were asking about bangers only. So there's your answer. Bangers only got fans.
Look, guys, I would I know people have been asking. I would really much rather be doing that than what I am currently doing, and living the insane stress that I am currently living. That sounds really chill. So hopefully I'll be back to that soon.
Soon. Dom.
I'll be doing my normal stuff. I'll be watching LCS. We got a week break from LEC. LPL Playoff starts, and yeah, just be doing my normal content.
Bam. Hardest working man.
What are you doing? More playoff interviews for you, Dgon?
More playoff interviews, and then I booked my flights. Still need to do accommodations, but I got the flights to Raleigh, North Carolina. So if you are going to be there at the LCS finals, make sure to come and say hi. I'd love to see you. Again, the community is one of the favorite parts of doing shows like this for me. So definitely come say hi.
Bring your moms for Dgon. Hashtag moms for Dgon.
Hashtag moms for Dgon. Sure, I'm in. Thank you all so much for watching again. Thank you both for doing the show. I love being able to share how great League of Legends can be from different areas. No other show does it like we do it. And you can catch us again next week for another episode of Power Spike. Thanks, guys.